Hey, folks, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited about this series. I get to talk to my sisters about being a Wonder Woman. Here's what we know. We had a series back in June called Wild Inside, and it was just for the men. I think the gals learned a lot, but everybody knew that when we finally got to the girl series, it was going to be way better. So I'm so excited to be with you folks. And men, just so you know, there's only two things that you need to know about a woman. Nobody knows what those two things are, but hey, for real though, ladies, I'm going to need some help today. I hope that's all right. You see, we're going to talk a lot about girl-related stuff, and a lot of the guys aren't going to believe me, so I need you to have extra loud, high-pitched amens so that they know that I'm not crazy, all right? It is difficult being a woman. I put this out on social media this past week. What is the hardest part about being a woman? And I got so many awesome responses. I was really so humbled to hear from all the gals that responded. And they went to like level 4. Like they just went there and said, hey, here's what's hard. Here's what's hard. And as a dude, I don't always relate to everything that I was hearing, but there was definitely one answer that bubbled to the top. What is hard about being a woman is also what is best about being a woman. I asked both questions. And what's hard and what's best, at least according to these ladies, was gals have this awesome God-given emotional capacity. Their emotions can feel deep with people. Their emotions can go deep in relationship with people. Ladies, sometimes they're a little more intuitive. They can sense certain things are going on, and that's awesome, but the weight of that can be very difficult sometimes. The weight of their emotional apparatus can sometimes override and confuse biblical wisdom. My heart broke as gals shared different stories about how this works in their lives. And ladies, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Here's what I want this talk to be. I really want it to just be a talk between me and my sisters. Guys, you get to listen in. I've got 4 daughters, and I want to talk to you ladies the way that I would talk to my girls, not in a condescending kind of way, but just to share some things that I think are really, really, really important. But we've got to start with this idea that what do we do when the emotions of a woman are sometimes overriding biblical wisdom? I thought maybe a good place to start is to ask a gal that seems to be very familiar with this. One of my favorite fictional princesses, this is Rapunzel. Let's ask Rapunzel what she thinks. This is right after she escapes from the tower. Let's see how she processes that. A little at war with yourself. Ladies, is that how it is? Tell the men if that's how it really is. Yeah, guys, we don't understand this. This is hard for us to really relate to on some levels some of the time. But it still brings out the question, because the emotions of our Wonder Women are so powerful, and they so fiercely demonstrate the love and the compassion and the ferociousness of the heart of God sometimes. But sometimes they can be in conflict, and sometimes it leaves a gal confused. How do I embrace biblical wisdom when my emotions seem to be overriding and steering everything that I do? And this is really hard because the world and the devil, now I believe the devil's a real dude. You don't have to believe that, but Jesus talked about the devil. So however you want to think about that, the world and the devil are always telling our gals lies. They're always telling our ladies one specific lie in particular, and that is, it doesn't matter what you do, you're never going to be good enough. Whatever you do, miss, you're never going to be good enough. You're never going to measure up. And we're going to look at 7 categories where this message is communicated to our mamas and our sisters and our daughters. And what I want to do in this series is I want to convince every single woman that a Wonder Woman lets her Lord speak for her. It's not that she couldn't speak for herself. It's not that she's not smart enough or strong enough, but she knows, a Wonder Woman knows, that God's words are the best words and the most powerful words. And when she just submits herself to God's words and agrees with God's words, He will defend her all by Himself. Now, I want to put all my cards on the table, and I want to let you know that I believe You may not believe this at this point, but I believe that Adam and Eve were real historical figures. They weren't just mythological people that made a point. They do make a lot of points, though. And I think even if you don't believe in them personally, you're going to see that this passage has a lot of good wisdom to share with us. And the reason that I believe that they were real is because Jesus referred to them like they were real people. And I don't know about you, but for me, if you say you're going to be killed and then rise from the dead, and then you're killed and rise from the dead, like Jesus did, you're just right about everything. So, I don't have to understand everything always that Jesus says, but I know that he's right. So, I don't know about you, but that's how I think about it. And we've got to understand some of the backdrop of this passage that we're looking at today, because in Genesis chapter 2, what happens is God looks at the man that he's created, and the man isn't smart enough to figure this out, but God figures it out and says, it's not good for this man to be alone. And he has a special kind of creation for Eve. With everything else he created them from the dust of the earth directly. But with Eve, it's a little more special. He puts Adam to sleep and takes one of Adam's ribs and fashions Eve. And what we have to know is the Bible doesn't tell us how long it was that Adam was out. But what we do know is the time between Adam went to sleep and the Lord introduces Eve to Adam, the only one that interacted with Eve was God. And so everything that she learned about the world, everything that she learned about herself, everything she learned about her identity came from the lips of God himself. And then he brings her along and introduces her to Adam, and then they go about their ministry of being fruitful and taking care of the world. But then this wicked snake, he slithers in. And he's got a plan. He's going to alarm this woman. He's going to suggest that maybe God is holding out on her. Maybe there's something that she has to take care of herself. God didn't do it, so she's got to do it. And this is exactly what he does in Genesis chapter 3. I'm going to start in just the end of verse 1 there. Did God really say you must not eat the fruit from any of the trees in the garden? He's planting the seed of suspicion that God is not as good as he's pretending to be. Woman, you're going to have to do something about that. Verse 2, of course we may eat fruit from the trees of the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we're not allowed to eat. God said you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die. You will not die, the serpent replied to the woman. God knows, and here it is, God knows that your eyes will be opened as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. Eve, you don't know what's good for you, and God is deceiving you about what is good for you. You're going to have to do this yourself. You're going to have to take matters into your own hands. You're not already what you should be. You must make yourself what you should be. And so Eve thinks that sounds like a good idea and takes a bite. And when she takes a bite, my friends, this is what happened on a cosmic scale. Humankind fell. And they became what is just understood as sinful. It's not just that humans sin, it's that they are sinful. There's a disease of tendency towards sin that flows through all of our veins. But there was something else that was jacked up and messed up there, my sisters. And it was Eve's unique ministry of displaying to the world the beauty of God. You see, that was part of what she was designed to do. That's why she was so beautiful. That's why our women today are so beautiful, because deep in the heart of woman, there is something that was designed to unveil God's beauty. Every woman and man was really designed to be a mirror of sorts that reflect back to the world. They're facing God, and they reflect back to the world the awesomeness and the beauty and the power and the glory of a good God. But when Eve took that bite, something about her ministry of demonstrating beauty to the rest of the world was fallen. It was hurt. It was damaged. And now she's looking at herself along with Adam. We'll get to his part later on in the series. But she's looking at herself and she begins to cover herself up. And she begins to say, I'm not what I should be. I know what I'll do. I'll string together some fig leaves and I'll try to cover myself. I'll try to add to what God did. I'll try to primp. I'll try to put myself together. I will try to attain what I'm not. And that is what the world is telling all of our gals, all the time. The enemy is asking this question. He's saying, aren't you missing something? Ladies, he asks you every day. Sisters, aren't you missing something? Don't you need to add to what God did? You're not enough the way that you are. You must do something to prop yourself up because God couldn't handle it. And she and we embrace what I'll just call fig leaf thinking. Fig leaf thinking is I'm always trying to better myself because deep inside there's an insecurity that I am not okay the way that I am. And you know, on some levels, there's truth to what the enemy is saying. Because of the fall, because of sin, because sinfulness is now within our veins, we do need something to make us okay, but it's nothing that we can do. You see, God came along and he sought out Adam and Eve. They didn't seek him. He sought them. And he said, hey, your fig leaves, no, those aren't going to work. You need me to cover you. I didn't cause this. You caused it. But in order for you to really be rescued, I need to fix it. And he does this interesting bit of performance art. He takes animal skins, which meant the first death had to do with covering of sin. He takes animal skins and he covers the man and the woman and says, you're not sufficient to cover yourself. I cover you. And do you know that's what Jesus Christ offers to each and every person? He says, you're doing all of this and trying to hide and run and deal with and make your sin more appealing. And what you really need to do is accept the blood and the sacrifice and the death of Jesus Christ as your covering. It's not something that you can do on your own. But anyway, the enemy is asking her and asking our ladies every day, aren't you missing something? And I want to give you 7 areas where he's asking that question. The first area is in the realm of appearance. Now, ladies, I need to hear some amens if this is true. Okay, isn't it true, ladies, that really it's not even about whether or not you look pretty, it's whether or not you feel pretty. Is that true? Yeah, guys don't really understand this. I'm sorry. I've never rolled up on a guy and he's over here crying. What's wrong, bro? I just don't feel pretty. Like, guys don't understand that at all. And that's all right. We don't know because we don't have that original ministry in the same way of demonstrating the Lord's beauty to the rest of the world. But gals do this all the time. They're comparing themselves to what they looked like when they were 17. They're sad about their stretch marks or whatever it is. They're comparing themselves. They're in the checkout aisle at Meijer, and they're looking at these magazines and all these models. And what they're forgetting is, okay, first of all, there was a team of people that put that girl together. Second, there's a whole bunch of airbrush and computer-generated stuff going on with her, and most ladies don't have access to all of that every day. And really, ladies, they get to the place, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, and I know this isn't all of you, so just here for some of you, but you so want to be more or prettier than you are that when you see a girl that you think is prettier than you, you're tempted to hate her. Like, I hate that girl. This was driven home to me a few weeks ago. I didn't totally understand this, but so we have this service called VidAngel, okay? So that's a streaming service that kind of cleans your movies. It'll take out whatever you want, like swearing or sex or whatever. And so The Italian Job is on the VidAngel. I'm like, oh, cool. Babe, this is a great flick. Let's watch this. Talking to my wife, Mackenzie. And I go to turn it on, and immediately her disposition changes. She's like, oh, I don't want to watch this show. And I'm like, what is this about? Like, this is a good show, and we took all the hell out. I don't know what the problem is. Come to find out, as I pushed on that thing over the next few days, the problem is not the show, it's the actress, okay? It's Charlize Theron. As soon as Kenzie sees that woman, who I have, okay, she's great, she's fine, she's a human, but there's no attraction there for me. As soon as she sees that, it's like, that woman is pretty and she's a threat, no show. We are not watching that show. And she doesn't always respond that way, but ladies, I mean, is that real? Do y'all just kind of get mad when there's someone you think is a threat or someone who's pretty? I don't totally understand that, but ladies, you have this thing about appearance, and it's because you were designed to demonstrate the beauty of Jesus Christ. And you feel like something is broken or something is fallen. And some gals, they jump out of the competition, which is what it is, altogether. And they say, you know what, I don't think I'll ever be pretty enough for this world. Or somebody said something to me early on, and so I just take myself out of the race. And what's sad, it's smart that they don't engage in the culture's values like that, but it's kind of bad because they squelch and deny and kill that thing in their heart that wants to demonstrate God's beauty, and they become resentful, and they become angry instead of looking for a different way. Now, ladies, don't hear me wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with Maybelline, okay? There's nothing wrong with making yourself pretty, but we're going to look at a better way here in a little bit, but I want to touch on some other areas. What about the house or apartment or condo, whatever kind of dwelling you live? Gals sometimes believe that their house represents them on some level. Okay, so that means whatever's true inside that house, it's really about them. And if they were a better person, they'd have a better house. And my sisters, this gets really bad. And listen, I ain't dissing this, but this is just weird to me. A few years ago, there was something invented called Pinterest. Okay, Pinterest is, ladies, I don't know how else to say this. This is like house porn. Okay, it's weird, man. It creates this unreasonable expectation of like, if your living room doesn't look like this, or your kitchen doesn't look like this, and sisters, can I just give us all a revelation? Nobody lives in those rooms, okay? Those are like showrooms. Those are like to sell people things. Nobody actually has that. How many ladies know if you have a child between 0 and 12, at least once a day, it's like a bomb went off in your house? Okay, so nobody's world is really like that. And then speaking of kids, there's kids. Letter C is a place that women don't feel good enough is with their kids sometimes. Whatever their kid does kind of represents them. And so if their kid is acting wrong, or their kid is out of line, or their kid mouths off in a public place, it's because I'm a bad mom. My wife, a few weeks ago, we noticed a family down the street, and their kids all have matching clothes. And my wife's like, man, I can't even find socks for these kids sometimes. And immediately becomes like, I'm a bad mom because my kids' clothes don't match. And I know that sounds weird, but that's how ladies do it sometimes. If my world, this realm, isn't up to snub with somebody else's, it's because I'm bad. Relationships. This gets sticky for gals too. Some of our single women here, you're awesome and you're free, and yet sometimes you're tempted to think, if I was really good enough, I wouldn't be single. If I was smarter, if I was prettier, if I was a little more godly, or sometimes if I was a little less godly, I'd attract the right kind of guy, and then I could feel better about myself. I'd be better. I would be able to be good enough. Other ladies, and I know because I've had conversations with some of you, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but some of you have been divorced and you feel like you are bruised fruit. And like there's nothing you can do to make up for that. Like you missed that season of life. It somehow went wrong. And ladies, just so we remind ourselves, it takes two to tango, okay? And yeah, I'm sure you did some things imperfect, but so did somebody else. But you still feel like, I'm never gonna get past this, and I'm never gonna be over this, and I'm always gonna be not quite good enough compared to somebody else. Some of us, sisters, there's a friend group that you're not in, right? There's the friend group, oh, they're all so tight. And they all like squeal at each other's jokes. And in some of them, like they go on the lake house trip and they're all in their lake house, right? And they all wear the same kind of pajamas and all that kind of stupid stuff. And you feel weird. You feel like I wasn't invited into that group. And it's because I'm not good enough. If they really, and the truth is they never had a meeting to exclude you. It's just the way life went. And yet you feel like if I was really good enough, I'd be inside that group. How many know that all relationships are marred by sin? There is not a relationship on earth that doesn't have complications because of sin. What about career? Some ladies, this is a real sticky place. This is letter E if you're taking notes. Career, this means, hey, I need to keep moving forward so I can demonstrate to everybody that I'm a good enough woman. I'm talented enough, I have enough power, I have enough influence. When I'm really important, then I'll have the name on my desk, or I'll have my name on the office or whatever. And if I could just get there, then I would be good enough. Then people would understand. Sometimes even like religion, that's letter F. And by that I mean our walk with Jesus. There's a myth out there. my sisters, that says a real Christian woman doesn't have any problems. She has no anxiety. She has no stress. She's always like she fits into what she fit into when she was 17 years old. She would never have to take medicine or anything like that. She'd never have to see a counselor. She would just be, her kids would always be behaving. And sisters, that's just not true. Like, that's not how it goes. Listen, all of us stumble in many ways, and we make lots of mistakes, and Jesus picks us up. That's how that works. And here's where it gets messy, is that sometimes gals, they'll show up for a while because they'll feel like life is going good, and I feel good about this stuff. And as soon as life starts to not go well, then they're out the door. They're like, well, I can't show up now because I don't have a perfect life anymore. And it's like totally dumb. I'm not calling anybody dumb, but I'm just saying, so when things aren't going well, then you leave church? Like, that doesn't make any sense, sister. Otherwise, they just fake it. They're just like, well, I'll pretend everything's good, and I'll never be vulnerable, never share what's actually going on in my heart with anybody so that I can't be rejected. But the problem with that is eventually you get worn out, and you get tired of faking it, and then you just move on. And then letter G is the past. Lots of gals really identify more with their past than their current state in Jesus Christ. They look at something that happened in the past, or maybe somebody that wasn't there, or the way somebody treated them, or the way somebody took advantage of them, and they say, because of this mark in my past, this is who I am for the rest of my life, and I'll never be good enough because I can never undo that thing that happened. And it's super sad. And it's missing the power of truly hearing God's voice through His Word and embracing your royal destiny. You see, there's a fig leaf thinking, which says, I've got to primp. I've got to somehow cover myself. I've got to have the right job or the right kids or the right marriage or the right looks to be okay, to be good enough. But then there's a daughter of a king mindset. There's a royal mindset. See, nobody can unmake you a princess. When you really know that Jesus Christ has caused you to be a son or daughter in Him, when He has caused you to be by virtue of His sacrifice, He says in His Word that He that knew no sin, Jesus, became sin so that we might become the righteousness of God in Jesus Christ. That means Jesus gifts you His good enough. You don't need your own good enough anymore. You don't need any more fig leaves because He's taken His own royal robe and He's thrown it around you and says, my approval is on this one. I was good enough for this one forever. They are royalty. When that's true of us, ladies, we don't have to primp anymore. Two words come to mind as I think about you poor, awesome, sweet women. The first word is tired. As I was reading all these surveys this past week, tired. Like, y'all are wearing so many hats. I don't just mean physically tired. I mean emotionally tired of having to be all these different women. Oh, my word. And then frustrated. The second word is frustrated. I think there's something deep in the heart of a woman that knows it's supposed to be easier than this. There's something in you, you beautiful creature, that was placed in there by God back in Eden that remembers there's supposed to be a rest to this thing. This is supposed to be easier than, I'm not afraid of hard work, but this should be easier than this. I can't be trying to be somebody all the time. Now let's look at those 7 categories and let's just I want to own this with all you awesome Wonder Women. I want to own this together. Listen, all those 7 categories, nobody can get an A+ in every one of those areas all the time. It's not possible. There's no one on earth who could do that. You might have an A in different seasons in different areas, but that's just not going to happen. It is a goal that should be forsaken, sister. You're not crazy. Nobody could ever do that. And we need to let it go. And we need to believe what Jesus says. We need to remember that a Wonder Woman lets her Lord speak for her. So I want to tell you a little bit of what Jesus says. First, if you're taking notes, you can write these down. I don't think they're in your notes, but feel free to jot them down. In Christ, I am priceless. In Christ, I am priceless, sister. There is unlimited value in you. And here's the problem. If you don't believe this, lady, you're going to abuse yourself. This is where cutting comes from. This is where suicidal thoughts come from. This is where anorexia and bulimia come from. You don't think that you're valuable, so you've got to do something to punish yourself or make yourself something. And if it's not your own self-abuse, I don't know if it's worse or not, but you'll allow other people to abuse you because you don't think you're worth nothing. You don't believe you're worth anything. And so you allow people to come down on you and hurt you, sometimes emotionally, sometimes physically. And it's because you don't realize the price that was paid to get you. So let me mention quickly someone in the Bible that I think you're going to like him if you don't know him. He's King David. And let me just say, he's a dude, but he is the most emotional person in the Bible by far. Okay, here's a guy, he's writing these Psalms, and like in the same 2 lines, he's like, I feel so close to you, God. Oh, I want to kill my enemies. Like he's back and forth all over the place. Why did you leave me? And so if there's anybody that can resonate with having an emotional apparatus that is kind of saying multiple things at the same time, I think that it's David. Let's listen to what he says in Psalm 139, verse 13. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. I love that he put that in there because, ladies, sometimes we're despising the fact that God made us complex. We're like, I'm so complicated. But listen, that's part of image bearing. Here's why. Because God is so big. God is so infinite. See, he can experience all emotions at once. He has hatred for sin, and he has absolute love for every human being on the planet. But he can be jealous at the same time and can be affectionate and compassionate at the same time and merciful and also bring his justice at the same time. And what he does with little baby girls is he makes a little deposit, a little drop of his image inside of her. And so now she's experiencing all these emotions at the same time. Sister, you are imaging God when you do that. Now, you need his help to manage it, but don't think that there's something wrong with that. That is one of the ways you point to God and reveal his beauty. Listen how intimate David is. He says, your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Verse 15, you watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. Nobody else was there, but God was there. Now listen, this is the important part. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God? They cannot be numbered. What are God's thoughts about you, dear woman? They are precious. Now, some of you will immediately react to that, and you'll be like, well, Carter, no, I think that's just when I was a baby, when I was a little girl, when I was innocent still. No, that's not what he said. Did you see that? Verse 16, every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. Okay, so what that means is, yes, when you were born, all the way up until the day that you expire. God sees all of them at the same time, and he's aware that you make mistakes. He's aware that you do foolish things, but he looks at the whole thing and he says, you know what I think about that? Precious. This girl is precious to me. No, despite what all she did, I knew exactly what she would do when I died on the cross for her. I knew every moment of her existence, and I still thought she was worth making and still thought she was worth coming and dying for because she is precious. And dear women, you need to receive today that when Jesus thinks about you, he doesn't think about all the disappointments the same way that you think about a little baby that's precious in your arms. He looks at you all your days, and he says, despite their sin, they are precious to me. And sisters, I just want to lovingly challenge you. Don't ever stand in the shadow of a blood-stained cross and tell God that you are not valuable. I'll say it again. Don't ever stand in the shadow of a blood-stained cross and tell God that you are not valuable. It's just the wrong thing to say. It's a slap in Jesus' face. Because he's like, okay, if you're not valuable, what was that all about? What was all that blood I spilled for you? What was that whole 33 years that I spent here walking day by day, every step of obedience for you? What was that about if you're not valuable? You are infinitely valuable, my sister. So let's not spend one more day thinking about ourselves according to the ways of the world. Let's say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to think God's thoughts after him. That's why we value God's word so much around here, because we don't need any more to synchronize with what the world is saying. We need to synchronize with what God is saying. Let me give you one more. You can write this down if you're taking notes. Gals, we need to decide that we're never going to be complete by synchronizing with a world that is incomplete. Here's what you ladies do, and I'm not dissing, I'm just calling it like it is. You synchronize with other fallen women. Like you synchronize with incomplete people. They have the disease of sin too. So think about it like files on your computer, okay? So some of you, you know what this is like. You're gonna sync your phone to your computer, and there's a file folder on your computer, and here's the problem. You wanna sync to that, you wanna get that file in your phone, but first of all, the file's incomplete. It doesn't even have everything you have. Secondly, there's a virus in it. So as soon as you synchronize with it, all you're doing is inheriting a lot of its jacked upness. But that's what happens when gals say, I need to have their appearance. I need to have their house. I need to have those kinds of kids. I need to have this kind of past. I need to have these kinds of relationships. What? No, don't sync to the world. The world doesn't know what it's doing. The world is hopelessly lost. They don't know where they're going. No, you, dear princess, you sync to God's word. It's the only clean file there is. God's word is the only thing that cleanses us as we synchronize to it. What we need to decide, my sisters, we need to get the revelation. There's nothing I can personally do that is going to help me feel good enough. There's nothing I'm going to sync to that's going to help me feel enough. What I need rather to do is decide, Jesus Christ already approves of me on my way toward the perfection that he has pronounced over my life. I'm going to say it again. Jesus Christ already approves of you. And as you walk with him, he's declared she's already perfect because I've given her my own perfection. I've thrown my robe around her. And now day by day, I'm going to make her practically more and more perfected. But it's not something out there. It's something royal princesses we know right now. I'm already royalty. I don't need to work myself into this chair. I'm already sitting in it. I want to give you the magical question. It's going to help you not censor yourself, not be insecure about things. You know what I've noticed? I've got 4 daughters, and right between about 11 and 13, they change a little bit. Before that, they're very out in the open. Like they're twirling in their dress. Daddy, look at me in my dress. You know, and they're singing at the top of their lungs. They don't know yet to do this. Like they're not doing it yet. But right about 11 to 13, they start to hold back. And they're like, is there something wrong with me? Are people going to like this? And they're holding back, and they're beginning to learn the system of the girls, which is, no, you've got to add some fig leaves to that thing to be okay with yourself. And I want to give you a magical question, I think, sisters, that's going to help you not do that. Here's the question. How do I demonstrate the beauty of Jesus here with what I have? In every one of those 7 categories, how do I demonstrate the beauty of Jesus here with what I have? So, let's talk about your appearance. Sure, I'll repeat it for you, Aaron. How do I demonstrate the beauty of Jesus here with what I have? So let's talk about your appearance. This is how you look. And gals, you look beautiful today, I'll just tell you. But here's some bad news. You are never going to be the hottest stuff on the planet. There's just always somebody more hot, okay? I'm sorry. There just is. And that's not my opinion. That's just what you're going to find to be true. If you compare yourself to somebody, there's going to be somebody beyond them. Right? So let's just decide, dear woman, you've been given what you've been given. You've been given what you've been given. Now, with what you've been given, how do you demonstrate the beauty of Jesus here right now with what you have? Okay? And what that means, is that going to do something to your appearance? Possibly. It might, you might put on some extra makeup, or you might, go work out or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not saying anything's wrong with that. But what we are saying is, what is the point of that? The point of it is to demonstrate His beauty. Say, I'm gonna do all I can with what I have to show everybody that He's a beautiful God. Now, here's what Wonder Women are gonna find out. That's a whole lot more about what's going on here than what's going on here. Are we hearing that? That's a whole lot more about what's going on in the heart. Am I walking with Jesus in such a way that more and more I'm demonstrating godliness and holiness, not because I need to add something, but because He's worthy of it? That's the beauty that we're trying to reflect out into the world, my dear sisters. What about your house? Maybe it's not about getting it the most pristine and the most perfect window treatments anyone could ever have. Instead, you're saying, you know what? This is the dwelling I have, but given what I have, how do I demonstrate the beauty of Jesus with it, given where I am right now? And here's a secret that I'll tell you. Probably you're going to find out, yeah, do your best you can with, like sweep the floor and vacuum and all that stuff. But beyond that, recognize that mostly it's probably the living and the loving that takes place in the home that is really demonstrating the beauty of Jesus. That's probably really what you're aiming at if you're trying to demonstrate His beauty. Same thing with your kids, right? It's not, do I have perfect kids? It's rather saying, given the situation I have, maybe we're divorced. Maybe some of the kids live far away sometimes. Maybe they're in diapers. And if they're in diapers, that means I'm going to demonstrate the beauty of Jesus by changing this diaper with a good attitude. Maybe they're teenagers, and you're going to say, I'm going to demonstrate the beauty of Jesus by showing extra grace, extra affection, and appropriate discipline when it is time. What about your career? Sorry, let's go to relationships. What about your relationships? Well, sometimes you're going to have relationships that are just awesome, and you get to demonstrate the love and affection that are in those relationships. But a lot of times you're going to have disappointing relationships, sisters. You're going to go to work with people that you can barely stand without slapping them in the mouth. And so the way you demonstrate the beauty of Jesus is on the way to work in the car, you're saying, oh, Jesus, help me be patient with this poor little girl. She's about to get jumped. I'm telling you, Jesus, help me. Maybe it is your career. Maybe, yes, you can believe God for greater things and open doors, but how do you demonstrate the beauty of Jesus here with what you have? Maybe you're the best employee anyone's ever seen. Maybe you have a spirit of excellence that nobody else has. Maybe you're speaking an encouraging word when everybody else is speaking a negative word. Maybe it's not about your work. Maybe it's about ministry stuff. Maybe it's about stuff here at the church. And you're like, I feel like if I was good enough, I'd be beyond this. No, you be faithful right where you are and demonstrate the beauty of Jesus from the position that you were in and see what He does with that. Because sisters, that's what you were made for. You were made uniquely with a unique woman's ferocious, fierce heart to demonstrate the beauty of Jesus, and nobody else can do it. We need you to do it. And what about your walk with God? How do I demonstrate the beauty of Jesus in the walk that I have? And what that means is I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have my entire act together. What I'm going to instead do is say, I think it'll reflect God's beauty if I just demonstrate to people that I'm a normal human, that I make mistakes, that sometimes I trip in the middle of the aisle, that I'm just fine and dandy with a God that loves me and forgives me. And I'm going to do my best to tell everybody about the gentleness and the forgiveness of a God for girls that do bad, dumb stuff. I think that'd be really beautiful. Maybe your past. Maybe the best way for you, sister, to demonstrate the beauty of Jesus is to say, my past cannot be anything other than what it is, but there's a good, awesome, loving, saving God that has sovereignty over my past. And what I want to do is say, Jesus, beautify this thing and use it to demonstrate your grace and your power, your ability to bring people out of horrible tragedy and still put a song in their heart and a passion and a love for Jesus Christ. Ladies, there's nobody like you. The men, we can't do this the same way. We need your good woman's nurturing, ferocious, loving, compassionate, emotional instincts. We need them in order to show forth the beauty and gloriousness and awesomosity of an awesome God. So here's what we're going to do in this series. We're going to lay down the fig leaves. And we're going to ask the question, what would royalty do anyway? Ladies, if we knew that we were already royalty, I mean, it's not something I need to earn or get or acquire, I'm already royalty, What would she do in my case? Because she's a real Wonder Woman. And the Wonder Woman that comes to my mind, the fictional one, she's my very favorite fictional princess. And that is, of course, Princess Leia. I want you to think about Princess Leia for a second because she's so bold. She's bad. Like she's fierce. She don't play. But you'll notice if you pay attention to Princess Leia, here's something that you'll notice. She's never trying to earn royalty. When you think about the way she walks in and she talks to Governor Tarkin, when you think about the way that she talks to Darth Vader, she knows who she is. She is a princess. She's not trying to be a princess. She is a princess, and she walks like a princess because she already has it. And my sisters, maybe your takeaway at the end of the day today is you've already got it if you are in Christ. You've already got it. Now walk in it. You fierce, ferocious Wonder Woman. Do you receive it today, my sisters? Let's bow our heads and pray. Jesus, only you could create creatures that have such tremendous potential to demonstrate to the world what a kiss from God is like. Would you help our gals throughout this entire series unite us as a church? Give us a vision and a passion to be those women that aren't trying to work our way up to something or cover something or censor something, but are going to be ready to radically and outrageously live for you in a way that demonstrates your good heart and beauty. In Christ's name, amen.